Hey everybody, welcome once again to the PHP 101 Screencast with me, Phil from BHO Web Design. And today I'm going to talk you through building a registration form. Now what this registration form is going to do is, using PHP, get hold of the data and then put it into a MySQL database, which could then be used later on in another script for login information and general just people registering to your site. Now, to do this, we're going to be using a MySQL database on an Apache server using PHP. Now, as I've said many times before, I'm a big fan of WAMP, and there's various different versions. It's what I'm using to run a local server on my PC. There is various different versions for Mac and Linux and so on and so forth. If you don't necessarily want to go down this route though, you can always get hold of a web server yourself, like Apache. Apache's been around since 1999. Big name in web servers, open source, so it doesn't cost you anything to get hold of it and install it for free. Also then, alongside that, you'll need a MySQL database. MySQL, just because that's what I know most about. There is other databases available, but PHP and MySQL just seem to sync together so well. You know, why reinvent the wheel with something else different? When you do get a MySQL database, it's always advised to also install this PHP Myadmin. Now, what PHP Myadmin does is it's a PHP based script that allows you to manage and handle the administration of your MySQL database. It looks a bit like this, but we'll come back to that in a moment. And then of course you need to install PHP. That's what you're here for. You go in the download section, download all the bits and pieces you need. It has installation instructions as well on how to install it onto your Apache server. But you could do either all four of these separate downloads and installs, or do what I've done and use one. I'd like to point out I'm not actually sponsored by WAMP or anything like that. I just like it and use it so much. I mean, pretty much all my developments I do locally on my own home PC. So you know, this is my go-to every time. So, onto this registration form. Now I've got my usual folder here with it's got an index.html in, a PHP file and a CSS file just to make the index form index.html page, the form on it, look a little bit better. Okay, the form at the moment looks a bit like this. I'm not really going to change the look of this, but I will take you through the HTML code to go with it. As I mentioned, the data though is going to be sent to a MySQL database, so it's best to set that up first. Here, so I've got a database called Screencast, and I'm now just going to insert a table which I'm going to call users, and I'm going to need 6 fields in it. I thought it was best for me to go through this with you because some of you may not have used MySQL before or PHP Myadmin, so don't quite know what you're doing with the setup. Okay, so in this setup, in this database, I'm going to give every member who registers an ID number. It just makes it a lot easier to associate anything with them. Instead of having to keep calling their names, because you could have multiple people with the same name or anything like that, you can just call by an ID number, and it's literally just a however many digit number. It starts at 1 and keeps going up. Now in this type, you'll see also here it asks for what type it's going to be. I'm just going to leave it as integer. Integer just means it's going to be a number. Okay. One of the important things to do though is, if you look here, you'll see there's index and AI, which stands for auto increment. Okay, I'm going to make the index primary and tick auto increment. Now what that will do is every time someone signs up, it will increase the ID number by 1. Right? It makes sense. Instead of you having to get your script to pull the number down and go, oh, what's this last person's number? Oh, it's this. Okay, add 1, send it back up. Why not get MySQL to do it for you? It's a feature. Next, I'm going to have another line called first name, and this I'm going to put as a varchar. You have to set a length, so I'm going to set it to 30. That's 30 characters. It's highly unlikely that anyone's going to have a name really longer than 30 characters. Well, a first name. Now for the last name, I've put the first and last name separate because you never know when you may want to call up just the first name or the last name. It's always useful to have. Then I'm going to put in the email address. Yet again a varchar, and I'm going to make that 50 characters long because people seem to be getting longer and longer email addresses nowadays. Next, username. Oh, varchar again. I'll make it 20 characters maximum. And then password. Now, the password we're going to be encrypting, right? So there is a set length the encryption will come out at. The encryption we're going to use is called MD5. MD5 is a very, very good encryption system. It is one way though, pretty much. It takes too much processing power to try and reverse the encryption, which is only more secure. I mean, you have to keep everyone's details as secure as you can. Now, if I can remember correctly, the maximum length of an MD5, if you look, see here, they're all the same length. I think the maximum length is 32, I think it is. So what I'm going to do is just play it safe. I'm going to put it at 34 maximum length for that. Okay, you don't need to put a maximum length on the ID field because it will just keep going and keep going, but it's very unlikely you're going to get to a ridiculous amount of users, ridiculous length of number, that you're going to have to worry about that. Alright, just save that so it creates the database. Here we go, it's all created as you can see. So we've got ID, first name, last name, email address, username and password. Oh, I'm probably talking a bit quick then, I'm very sorry. Right, on to the registration form itself. Let's tell you what, have it open alongside yeah, again using Notepad++. Oh, already got it open in here for you. Let me just, not quite got it fully prepared. I don't normally run with my computer this size of screen, as you may have guessed. I've just done it just to make the video file size a little bit smaller for the podcast. Right, anyway, HTML file. So we got in head section, the usual kerfuffle, link to the CSS file. I've just done a page wrap with the reg. Oh, just undo that. That was a bit of an accident then, didn't know I could do that. I've got a page wrap in there, h1 tag for the title, and then we get to the form. Okay. The actual main body of the the method using post is here. Sorry, send it to reg.php. Then the main meat of the form is here. I'm using HTML5, which you can tell by this doc type at the top here. That means we are using HTML5. So I can get away with using things like the input type name, input type email, input type, well, password was from HTML4, but that's not the point. Because happens by setting these things is HTML5 has an auto verification system built into it. So if someone just put an @ symbol in it, it won't recognize it as an email address and goes, oh, you haven't filled in an email. But anyway, I'm rabbiting on as usual. So I've set them with the names of first name, last name, username, email address and password. You may notice I keep putting capitals in the middle and lowercase at the beginning. When it's two words put together like this, I'd like to put it this way around just so it's easier for me to spot and easier for me to find. I know password's one word, but it's force of habit, to be honest. And then we've just got a submit button. This now looks like this. Okay, nice, simple, plain, clean HTML form. Excuse me, and we should put it on the local host so you can actually see it properly. Now what happens if I click submit? Nothing. The reason nothing's happening is because there's nothing here. What a surprise. So now let's get on with the meat of this PHP file. Basically, first thing we're going to do is open the PHP tags, no surprise there, and then we're going to retrieve all the data that's sent by the form. Okay, so I've got a string first name. I use the method of post. Oh yeah, I got it right. Hate when I can't do that. That's first name, then I add it last name, and username, string username. Oh. What's next? I had email address, and finally I retrieved the password, wasn't it? So right, so now the form is known, it's got to retrieve all the data. Fine, that bit's done. Now I mentioned about encrypting the password. So should the worst happen and should somehow some nasty person get into your server, they can't get hold of your users' passwords. It's good practice in the day. Okay, now I've mentioned that we're going to be using MD5. Now PHP has a function built in already to do this, so I have to actually type php.net. Has to type it right, doesn't it? Search for MD5 and you'll see here there is a function pre-built in into PHP that's incredibly easy to use. Okay, you can read up more on this if you want to. I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, so what I'm going to say is string password. Now you may be thinking, hang on a minute, why are you making a new string that you've already got here? Well, what's going to do is, instead of having multiple strings in multiple different names, I'm going to just reuse a name. Now what you can get away with this as long as you're clever about it. You see now I've got the password into this string password here. Then I've told it the string password doesn't actually equal that. It equals the MD5 of this. Now, because this was assigned before this, you can get away with it. You just can. Okay, so you can assign it twice, but you must know that the second time you assign a value to a string, it overwrites the first time. So that's that bit done. Next, we need to connect to the database, because we've got all the data from the form. We've got the encryption, which, I mean, how easy is that to do? Just simple MD5 in brackets, then put string the value inside, and that's it. It's encrypted in this. It doesn't take very long for PHP to process the encryption as well, either for it. So, you know, it's always good practice, as I said. Right, on to the next stage of connecting to our database. Now, there's going to be four definite things you need to know about your database so you can connect to it. Those things are going to be your host location, the username for your database, the password for your database, and the name of the database. Okay, so host location, in my case it's going to be localhost, but for you it could be anything. You get signed out by your web server supplier. Okay, so I'm just going to put them into strings because it makes it easier for me to make alterations in future if I wanted to. So string host for me is local host, then string database user is my username, which in my case is root, because it's just hosted locally. Now, yet again, this is something that you will be given by whoever you buy your web server off. Okay, then string database password, I don't know why I put it that long. I can get away just putting that. There we go, just because I'm locally hosting, that's what I've set it to. Obviously you'd have a different password which will be generated for you, or you may be asked to assign yourself a password when you create your database on your remote server. Then finally, my database name, so in which case at the moment for me it's called Screencast. If you don't quite know where to get the database name from, if you go into Php Myadmin, it will be here, or in this version of Php Myadmin it tells me here as well. That's it there, that's the name that you need to put in, not the table name, the actual database name itself. So we've now got all the information we need about the database. Now it's time to establish the connection. Now we're going to use a system called Mysql Connect. It's a function that's already exists in PHP. But what, instead of just, you can just type like that and put all the details in. So string host, string db user, string db pass. Now you can get away with doing that, but what I like to do is to put this into a string, because then we've just got a bit more flexibility in things that we can do for, like closing the connection at the end. It just saves a lot of typing. So what I'm going to do is put in a string called con, which I put as short for connection. So now that's all you need to do to make the original initial connection to the database. Then you pass it all the information it wants so you can log in. Okay, now after that, what I'm going to do is insert an if statement here, so I know if there's a problem with the database, it's down for some reason or whatever, there is an alert made. You can inject script into there to cope with it, whether it be a apology note or what have you. It's just advised to put in something so you know it is actually working. The way I do that is going if exclamation mark string con, which means if you do not establish connection, okay, then die. Die means the script will just stop. Do not pass go, do not collect your £200 or dollars, what you want to call it. It just means, yeah, just stop completely. Go send me a message saying could not connect, and I'm gonna then add onto that, oh, get this right, could not connect. I'm then going to add to that this MySQL underscore error. What this function does for you is it reports to you why it could not connect. So if there was a problem with your password, your username, or what have you, this will report it back to you going could not connect, session timed out, whatever you. Okay. Then what we're going to do after that is put and well, yeah, that's it. I don't need to put anything after that. What you can put, just for testing purposes, is an else statement, and then just get it to echo that it's connected. That didn't look right then, the spelling on that. Oh, weird. I didn't know I could do that with Notepad++. Okay, so now I can run this script now. If I just go to here, go like that, go like that. Here we go. It is now telling me that it is connected to the database with no issues. Okay, the actual connection for the database is just these couple of lines here. If you ignore this string here, okay, you could even break it into one line if you wanted to, just by replacing these strings with the actual data. But as you see, I like to put it this way because then if you're changing hosts in the future and you're not going through looking for this little bit of a line, you can have this at the top of your script, and there you go, just alter it in there, no issues. Okay, now this die function is always good to have in there as well. It's just useful. It stops the script trying to be executed when it isn't going to work. And this bit is just for testing purposes, just so you can know it is actually connecting, no problems. So I'm going to delete that bit out now. Right, now we have our connection. Now what we want to do is we want to select the actual database itself. I mean, we've connected to it, but we do need to now actually say to it, oh, you know, where are you? We need to now divert our connection. That's the way it's saying I was looking for. Now, the way I do that is go MySQL select DB, and then just put in here the string DB name, spell it right, and there we go. That has now selected the database, no problems. You can check on it by the magical if statements, by going if just put it in an if statement like this, and if it's connected just echo something out. So there we go, found DB. Now let's just run the script again. There we go, it's found the database. Nice and simple. I'm probably boring the hell out of you now, but oh well. it's always good just to be sure that you are actually making these connections. Right, let's delete those bits out now because we don't need that if statement. We know we are actually making the connection, so we don't need to worry. Now for the bit that you've been waiting for. This is the moment when we actually insert the data into the database so it can be stored and called upon in future reference for logins and so on. Now what I'm going to do is go string SQL, and now I'm going to set up my query for the SQL, which is going to be an insert function, an insert query. Now I find the best rule of practice when doing SQL is to use double quotation marks, because you may want to use single quotations inside, or you do need to actually use single quotations inside. Usually you don't want it messing your script up. Okay, now what you're going to need to do as well is have your cap locks on, or hold down shift, and then type in insert. Right, after you've done that, you say you want it where you want it to insert to, so you want to say insert into, and now we name the table. Right, so the table we called, or I called, should I say, users. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go back to this, in lowercase put users, like that. Okay, and space, right, yeah, space, brackets, values in capitals again, and in brackets again. Right, we're now telling SQL when we run this query that we want to insert into users this information that we're going to supply here. Now if you notice, I've put a bracket either side of where it says values. This side we're selecting the table row, so you've got first name, last name, blah blah blah. This side of it we're saying this is what we want you to insert. It does keep chopping and changing around with MySQLs. You know, insert will be like this, to update, which means edit, you have to do it a different way, and so on and so forth. This is the way you have to do it for the insert. Okay, as far as I'm aware. There might be a different way, maybe a better way, but this is the way I've always known and always worked for me. One of the things you must make sure you do though is put it in table order. Okay, so you can't put last name before first name because it just will not like it. Okay, so what we need to do is tell it where the table, which table lines we want it to use. Okay, so I'm going to use this. It's not a single quotation, which is that it's a weird kind of quotation mark. On the Windows standard keyboard you normally find it next to the number 1 key to the left hand side of it. I don't know exactly what you call it, but you have to use that. And then name your first table. Then separate them with a comma and a space. Name your next table. So last name. And just keep going until you fill them all in. So email address, username, password. Right, you can now see the order I've set them in. It does match the order of the table as well. Okay, now on the other side, this is where it can get complicated if it's a long insert, is you have to put the information on the other side in the same order. Okay, so the information that's going into first name is first here, so it has to be first on this side. Password's last on this side, so it has to be last on this side. Okay, bear with me. This script will work. Okay, on this side of values though, use the single quotation mark. Can't tell you why. I didn't used to have to. For some reason they changed their mind. This is what you now have to do in MySQL. Don't know why. It just does. So string first name. It's same as the other side as well. Everything comma separated. Last name. What's next? First name, last name. Have I got a feeling? No, is email address before username. I'm going nuts. So string email address, string user name, string password, which of course is the encrypted password now because we sent it through that MD5 hash. Encryption. Right. This is now the query set up. Now we've got to tell the script to execute said query. Does seem long-winded, doesn't it? Right. Way we're going to execute it is I'm going to put it into an if statement. Yet again, it's so we can control the answer. So I'm going to put it in an if mysql underscore query. Now this is telling the PHP script to execute this query on your MySQL database and do what what the script wants it to do. So MySQL query string SQL. So the first time doing it is saying if it does work, I'm going to echo out in nice big H1 tags. Let's think. Oh, it's a registration form, why not? Welcome. Makes sense. It's a registration form. They're joining you. Else, so this is if the query does fail, we are now going to echo out failed. Please try it again. Now we could put MySQL here, error there, but I can't bother right now. So now, there we go. We've told it this is the information you need to grab. Encrypt the password. This, we then taught the script what all our details are, credentials are for our database. We've then told it to make the connection. Okay. Then we've said choose the table name that we want. So all this is just for the connection. Then we've gone into right, insert into table called users. Under these titles, this information that's here, and here we're saying now run it, but let me know if it has worked. If it does, say welcome. If it doesn't, say failed. Now one last thing we do need to do is obviously you got a connection running here. For as long as this page is open, the connection is running. So it's advised just for server load to at the very end put MySQL underscore close, and I'm going to use my string here, string con for string connection, and there we go. This now telling PHP we've finished with this connection, get rid of it, kill it off, we don't need it, my server doesn't need the overload. Okay, and that's it. So save that, and then we'll go over to here So now, first name, put John. Last name, Smith. Username, J Smith. Email address, so john@smith.com. Set a password of hello, and then we'll submit the form. It says welcome. Whew. Breathe a sigh of relief. Now if I go to this table, here we go, you see it's put all the information in the database with the password encrypted for security, and even assigned him an ID number of number 1. Now what will happen is if you have another person sign up, so I'll put my details in this time, there we go, that's me done there, and click on that again, and here we go, here's I am, my password encrypted, my username, email address, surname, first name, and my ID number of number 2. So now we have a full-on working registration form. Where you send the form on from there is totally up to you. I mean, you could do a header location here if you wish, which will then forward the person on to somewhere else, probably a login page or anything like that. Sorry about the yawns. I've just finished work. I'm exhausted. But I just wanted to get the screencast out for you. So there we go. That is how to do a registration form in PHP. Make sure at some point you get over to check out my website, bhowebdesign.com. It is still work in progress, admittedly, but you'll find in there, I've already put it up, which I didn't realise, all this code for this screencast, including the CSS, and explanations on how everything works, so you can build your own registration form. You'll also find in there I have my previous videos as well, and other bits of my blogs. Anyway, until next time, be safe, see you now.